Do you have a minute for Comadre time?
Hola Comadres, welcome to another episode of Comadreando podcast. I'm your host Marcy, and today we have an amazing guest, Camille. I will let her introduce herself. Who are you?
Yes. Hi, my name is Camille Joy. I'm just excited to be on your podcast. So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm the host of the Moments of Joy podcast, and I'd like to say I'm an encourager to the special needs parent.
Love it. So today's topic, Comadres, is supporting special needs parents' mental health needs. And the reason why the topic came up, Camille in her platform is a staunch advocate about taking care of our mental health first before, we pour into other people. And I feel like it's something that's not often talked about. There's actually statistics regarding parents with of kids with special needs having a hard time mental health wise. And I feel like this season for the podcast we're gonna be highlighting that more, and we're gonna be trying to provide more support for you guys as a community. So before we get into the go ahead.
I said, that's good.
So before we get into the nitty gritty, what is your career?
I am, first of all, I used to be an executive chef, right? That's what I've been trained to do. And 3 years ago, after my son's diagnosis and all the hits that we received, the blows, I'll call it, no sleep, just different things that Mason needed. I chose to leave my career with the support of my husband. So I'm a podcaster full time. I'm a speaker. Stepping into being an author, which is stretching me, is very hard. But and I'm a content creator online. So that's what I am. Full blown career right now.
That's awesome. So tell me about your experience when you first got the diagnosis for Mason. I know that everybody's journey is different. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want you to talk a little bit more about it, and if we can help other moms and kind of let them know that they're not alone. That was one of my biggest one of the biggest goals in the show is letting other moms know that they're not alone and that we're here for them.
Yeah. Well, when Mason received his diagnosis, it was coming behind us knowing that he would be diagnosed with congenital heart disease. And so he had already had 3 heart surgeries. And so when the daycare provider first told me that she noticed delays, I was very much in denial. I was very guarded because I thought, not another thing, no, just leave him alone. He's already been through enough. And so I asked her to just give me 3 months and we would watch his development over those 3 months. And after the 3 months passed, she came back to me and suggested that he receive birth to 3 services. That's what it's called in Connecticut, early intervention program. And so we agreed. And so he started receiving services, and soon after they suggested that he get evaluated for autism, and he was. And so just before 2 years old, he was diagnosed, and it was difficult and easy at the same time. It was difficult because I was like, oh, this will go away with prayer. And I'm just being serious. That's how naive I was. And I didn't know what else to do because that's what I normally do in my faith, because I'm a Christian. And so I was like, oh, I'll pray that away. Right. And then the second part of what I felt was, all right, I've seen other family members be in denial. I don't want to be in denial. So now I'm going to fully embrace that. Somewhere along the line, I put down that I'm going to pray it away, because one day when I was praying, so I have the kind of relationship with God where I hear from him too. It's a dialogue. Yep. So I talk, I listen too. Mm-hmm. And so one day during prayer, praying for Mason and autism, the Lord asked me, would you be trying to pray this away if it was Down syndrome? And I sat up on the bed and I was like, wow. No, I wouldn't be. You're praying wrong. You're praying wrong, Camille.
Mm-hmm.
You're praying wrong. Nope. This is who he is. It's not a disease. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It's not something that needs to go away. Now you start commanding what his future is going to be. And that was a life changer for me.
Wow. I get all choked up because it's like, we all have different journeys to arrive to the places that we are now. And one of the things that, I forgot to say how we connected. So through the podcast, we connected with each other because LaQuista, I had her on my show before, and then she followed you, and I think she reposted one of your videos. And it really touched my heart because it was just, you were being so vulnerable and so open. It was one of those videos that you were like crying and just sitting on the floor, kind of, going through not the motions, but just like going through your emotions and like valuing that, and and just being really real. Because the thing is, like, a lot of the time, as moms, especially women of color, it's not looked well by other people when we show ourselves as being vulnerable, or having other feelings than being the strong, black or brown woman. So
Yeah.
that it really, really touched me, and it was just kind of like so eye-opening. Like, you were using your platform to let other mothers know that it's okay to have your moment. You know what I'm saying? So that was like one of the biggest things for me. So Mason's your only child? Do you have more children?
No, Mason is not my only child. He is my last child. I have 5 children. I have 5 boys, 20, 18, 17, and 15, who absolutely despise social media. So every now and then you'll see them in my stories, or you'll see them on my page. I paid my son $10 to get in the reel the other day. And it was so messed up. You could like see his body language that he didn't want to be in it. I was like, I can't even post this. So I just let them be, they didn't sign up
No.
for this.
Yeah.
Now
But
Mason by default, he just gonna have to come along for the ride until he tells me no.
yeah, I mean, like, I love your platform, and the fact that you share so much with like the other moms. I love when you do the lives, and we're all there like in community and holding space for each other, which is really it's so important. And it just, I feel like by doing that you're helping so many other moms,
Mhm.
and I feel like the work that we're doing is like, sometimes it's hard. We don't always have it
It is.
together, but I feel like
Mhm.
by doing this, we're like dispelling myths, and also like
Yep.
breaking down stigmas and stereotypes about our kids. I feel
Mhm.
like what I want the most is to have more inclusive environments for our children. Spaces where
Right.
they can feel safe being themselves and they won't feel judged.
Mhm.
So.
Absolutely. And it is
Mhm.
difficult. It is difficult, and that's the reason why I started talking about it. I didn't like think, okay, I'm just gonna start sharing my son's journey. It was because I needed other parents. I needed to meet people. We had moved from Connecticut to Texas, and I had no family here or no friends.
Mm.
So I happened to stumble across this new app called Clubhouse. And
Mhm.
there for 1 year, I did a support group for parents raising children with special needs
Mhm.
every Monday. And I met so many parents and I learned so many stories. At the time, my social media page was not geared towards special needs. It was just mothers in general. But I started to pay attention to the fact that the autism content did well and people wanted to learn more. Even people who didn't have special needs children, it was intriguing. They wanted to know how to support. They wanted to know what life was like.
Mhm.
And so that day that you were talking about when I was crying, it was because 2 weeks before I made a decision that my page would be for special needs parents. And so while I was sitting there crying, I said, I have to give them a message because this is a real feeling. Like Mason's
Mm-hmm.
been crying for days, pulling his ears. I went to the doctors and we were both trying to hold him down while she checked his ears, and he like turned into the Incredible Hulk. He's really strong. We were on the floor, and then the doctor stopped and she said, "Mom, we're not going to traumatize him." And she couldn't check his ears. A couple of days later, I brought him to his pediatrician, and she told me, after looking, there's nothing wrong with his ears. It was sensory.
Okay.
So he doesn't have an infection or anything. And so it was really, a transition that it was real.
And then like there's times like I feel like a lot like we go through so much and we don't often check in on ourselves, like like sometimes I feel there's moments that I feel like very defeated, and I don't want other moms to feel that way. So I feel like being transparent and sharing our journeys with people can help other people not feel alone, because that was the biggest thing for me. I don't know if you felt the same way, Camille, but when he first got diagnosed, I felt very isolated. It was a very isolating diagnosis, because even though I do have baby cousins and other children in my family, nobody really was going through at that time, nobody was going through the diagnosis of autism, or we didn't really, in my family, like we didn't even really know what autism was like that. Like I had to research it.
Wow. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I had heard of it, but I had never really interacted with anybody that was on the spectrum that I knew of at the time,
So then you have to fight through ignorance, right? Yeah.
Especially in because I'm Dominican, so like especially in my community, and educating myself, educating other people, like teaching my family, as well as as teaching myself. That was like one of the hardest things for me, because you're learning, and then you're also trying to dispel myths at the same time. Like a lot of the time, even like the way that they express, a lot of the time the way we're socializing in the Dominican community and Latino community, is that that kid is quote unquote crazy, or they'll use like words that are not very uplifting of our children, so I feel like a lot of the time it was like fighting the ignorance, and then also educating myself at the same time. I feel like once I got the diagnosis, what I did, I took time off of work. So I took 3 months off. I was working at the bank at the time, and that's actually when I decided to switch careers. So I went from being in the banking industry to working, like going back to school to become a teacher. So I decided to do special education, bilingual special education at the time. So yeah, it was a lot. And then I decided to do special education because I wanted to educate myself more as well. Like there's certain things that you learn as a teacher that you don't necessarily learn in through the early intervention and all of that. So so tell me more about your show, and like what the work that you're doing regarding mental health and self-care and motherhood. I know you're doing so much. I love everything.
Yeah,
I know recently you went away, right?
Yeah, I started doing that a couple of months ago, every Monday, just talking about Mental Health Monday. Because I recently, I think about April or March, I started doing therapy every Monday. But it was because one day I just noticed I was having a whole lot of anxiety all the time. And not just like, the nervousness or anxiousness sometimes that we all feel, but it was really like a lot. And physically I would feel my chest hurting or my head hurting. And normally it was coming after Mason had like an hour meltdown. And now he's fine, and I'm like, I'm having a meltdown. And sometimes I found myself crying more frequently. I found myself unhappy with my marriage, even though he's great, and just snappy with the other kids. And I was like, okay, why is this happening? And it was because I was not taking care of me. I was just going and going and going to where I think I probably almost was about to have a nervous breakdown until I finally scheduled counseling. I looked on psychologytoday.com to find the therapist that was good for me. I dug into their background and saw which psychologist took my insurance and, well, therapist, not psychologist. Difference I learned too through therapy. Psychologists can prescribe you medicine, therapists can't. So, but she taught me a lot about chemically what was going on, and why when you go through so much, sometimes your body will go in, just in life in general. When we go through normal stressors, our body goes into flight or fight, right? But sometimes when we go into fight or flight so much, that hormone that naturally produces that, it starts to decrease. And then this is why we have anxiety or, we have stress. And then I started doing studies. And so there are studies here in the United States that I read, different colleges that did studies, and overseas in the UK. And they all say that parents raising children with disabilities experience anxiety and depressive symptoms above the parent that's raising a typical child. And we know why, right? I always say our children have autism, but there are children that are confined to the bed. There are children with no arms and no legs. There are children who will never leave a hospital. And those parents have to still stand up strong, right? It's a mental load that we have to carry. And the way that we get through it is we have to take care of ourselves. And most of us don't. And we feel guilty for it. And that doesn't mean spending money. So prioritizing your mental health is something different than self-care, right? So I incorporated, because I'm an entrepreneur now, I can work whatever days. So I decided Monday, I don't do anything. My sons ask me all the time, Mom, can you bring me to the basketball court? And I have to remind them, it's Monday. It's Mental Health Monday. No, I'm not doing anything. If I I can't stay in the pajamas because I have to pick Mason up from school. But if I had my choice, I would just stay in my pajamas all day long and sit. So I have therapy on Mondays, and I do something that makes, my soul feel good, just, pours back into me. And it's so important.
It's so important. Like,
one last thing, my friend, recently, she just posted a reel, maybe yesterday, and she passed out in her front lawn. She was watering her flowers, and her son was in the house, and she passed out. And she said she's a special needs mom. She has an autism son. He's 4. And she said she's been not feeling her best, but she kept going and going and going and going. So her outside cameras caught her falling, and her neighbor ran over to get her and call 911. But she could not be here. And that represents all of us, because we just keep going.
There's so many moms that I interview, and like, when I ask that question about what do you do for self-care, a lot of them don't have an answer for me. And then the thing is, like, I feel, because I went through a episode like that. Like, I want to say I'm 39 now. I want to say when I was like 35, I've dealt, like, I've my whole life, like, has been kind of like, fighting depression in one way or another, right? But then I was always able to, like, snap myself back. But then I started finding myself, like, in one of those, like, dark holes, and I couldn't get myself out. And that's when I decided to start going to therapy, because, like, I feel like the things that I talk about with my therapist, I feel like if I spoke to somebody else about it, like a family member or something, that I would be judged for the feelings that I was feeling,
You would.
So, and the thing is, like, people try to understand, but, like, I feel like autism mom to autism mom, like, we know what we go through, like, not everybody can understand, the mental load, and it's serious. Like, people, especially like your friend, that's scary. That's so scary,
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
like, what motivates me to pour into myself is that if I'm not here, who's gonna take care of him?
Yep. Yep.
And that's not fair to him.
Absolutely.
So by me taking care of myself and prioritizing my mental health, I'm able to be the best mom for my child and give him exactly what it is that he needs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And your son is older, right?
He's 13, yeah.
Yeah. So you have the wisdom even for dealing with the puberty stages and all of
Girl.
that because I'm right. I've just been hearing so much about
It's a lot,
that
and then
too.
they don't even know, like, a typically developing child has a hard time with puberty.
Right.
Once you throw the autism into the mix, they're like, he has days that he wakes up kind of like I'm bored and like
Yeah.
upset, and then he doesn't know how to verbalize, like, to tell me exactly what's going on or what he's going through in his head. So that also
Yeah.
affects you as well. Like, I feel like a lot of the time, it's just like everything adds to our plate, and then, like, we have to be very cognizant and very vigilant
Mhm.
of, like, those things that deplete us, and help take mindful moments to pour into ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because it could be so many different ways that autism will show up, right? Like Mason didn't sleep, but everybody's kid that has autism might not go through that. But
Hmm.
it could be like 4 days in a row where he's up all night, and I'm
Girl,
tired.
and that part,
Yeah.
you don't understand. I mean, you understand, but, like,
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand. Like, lack of sleep can definitely take a toll mental health
Yeah.
wise. Like, it's so hard. I cannot
Mm-hmm.
function at work if I haven't slept. There was days that Aiden wouldn't sleep, like let's say 16 hours straight, you know,
Yeah.
and I can't be at my best at work. I would have to call out of
Mm-hmm.
work because I wouldn't be able to function.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
complete zombie mode. And, like, I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to teach and, like, be a responsible teacher to my students if
Yeah.
I'm not showing up for myself.
That's right. And that was
No,
the
and
reason
then
my
mhm,
husband looked at me after days of being up and days of like crying. He's like, I've never seen you cry like this. He's like, you don't have to go back to work. And that was the one thing he said. I didn't make him tell me twice. I quit. And you want to know the funny thing, which is really somebody would hear this story and say, oh my God, I would never do that. I quit on the spot. I did not give my 2 weeks notice. I walked
girl.
in on a Sunday. It wasn't even a Monday, Tuesday during the week. I walked in and I was like, effective immediately. I'm quitting. I'm going. I'm leaving. My hands were shaking as I was talking to the lady, and I knew this is not me. I have to get myself together. And
I completely understand.
you talked about your what you went through with depression even before your son, and that was some of the root for my anxiety. Once I started therapy, it wasn't all just having a child with a diagnosis. It was the trauma that I have gone through all in life.
Mhm.
So when my children, three of my children, I was in an abusive relationship from 17 to 21. And by the time I was like 26, we had entered into a custody battle and he won. And so for 9 years, I didn't have my kids in my home. And so my therapist diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder. And the root was not Mason. The root was
Mhm.
being separated from my children. So all of that was boiling up now.
Mhm. Let me tell you something. And then the thing is, like, I feel like moms of kids with special needs, we end up with, like, these, like, because we're so giving, and we're so open, that I feel like a lot of the time we're prey to men that are abusive.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a relationship with a narcissist, and
Mm.
it ended up turning abusive at one point, and it only happened once, like, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was just kind of it was more the mental abuse. So then going through all of that, and then having my son recently diagnosed at the time. So it was just like all of that was boiling and coming, like, coming up for me. So like, it took me a while to be able to deal with the PTSD of being in a relationship like that. And then like,
Yeah.
and then the minute he left the house, I felt this overwhelming sense of peace that I had never felt, in a very, very long time. And even though I was alone, yeah, I did, go through that feeling of, you're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna find somebody. But it was just like that overwhelming sense of peace. Like I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
I agree.
I'm like, sister.
Yeah, right. That's how it is when you meet people and you find community. That's why I use that word so often. It's like, wow, I found my people.
Yeah.
Even moms who have like children with cerebral palsy and children with dwarfism, children with all different, medical diagnoses. I feel like we're all just, we all are a community. We all, we have to show up and raise our children to the best of our ability, and then not talk about them like it is a burden. It's beautiful at the same time. And I often think back to when I was 17. I was a senior in high school, a junior. Matter of fact, I was 16. So I was a part of this program called Best Buddies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nationwide nonprofit that is in some high schools. And it's a program where you become best buddies with the children in special education. And so I would sit at the lunch table with them. And I even went to their prom and not my prom. So like, I think about it and I know that even back then, like God was preparing me for right now to have a heart for special needs children.
Yeah. And I feel like the work that we do is so important, and the support and the fact that we're creating community. Like, you don't have to go through it alone. I told this to the moms all the time. You don't have to do it alone. We were not put on this earth. God didn't put us on this earth to just be like, individualistic, kind of like do your own thing. You got to figure it out. Our ancestors, we had community like
Right.
that. The European mentality was not a community based thing, but our African ancestors, it took a village. It literally took a village. So this is what I want to reinstate and help support each other in that way.
You're absolutely right, because when the slave ships came over, it was those African women who were the midwives right off the ship. They already knew how to help these women have babies and everything from, just being a community, being a village.
So Camille, you told me you have your mental health Mondays, which I love. I'm about to start.
Which was yesterday.
I'm about to start doing the same thing.
Yeah,
but,
and you can pick your own day, whatever day it is.
So what are the things that you do to help pour into yourself that set your soul on fire, that feed into more of Camille?
I do self-development things. So I have a mentor. I travel a lot. And by a lot, I decided the second quarter of the year I wouldn't travel so much, but once a quarter I usually travel. Also, just normal things like doing getting a manicure and a pedicure, talking on the phone. As simple as that is, I like to talk to my sisters and my mom and my best friend. I could talk to my sister for like 8 hours straight and we would not run out of things to talk about. I have
friends like that too.
One time I had to drive from Dallas to Houston at 4 hours, and I talked to her the whole way. And when I got there, she was like, "Oh, you're there already?" And we were just talking.
That's so important.
Yeah. about our kids, about our life. Yeah, but family is important to me. So, anything that includes family.
Yeah, I feel like my family, I honestly couldn't ask for a better family. Like my brothers are so supportive, and my mom too. Like, you know, I feel like whenever I'm feeling a little bit depleted, I can always come to them, you know, and they'll give me that, you know, that support that I need. Even though sometimes, you know, my mom could be a bit much.
Yeah, all of our moms, right? Yeah.
But yeah, it's important, you know. What else? What other things do? You like? You get your nails done. You always look great, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I do get my nails done sometimes, more pedicures than you know, my fingernails. And just I'm a homebody, so I like the things like Netflix and Hulu and being wrapped up in my fuzzy blanket and sitting on the couch. I really like sitting in the house. My husband, he's always like, "You need to get out this house and meet people," but I'm like, I meet people online.
Wait, and then what? So besides that, like yeah, you really enjoy your time at home. Do you like do bubble baths and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm very spiritual too, so I do like to pray. I do like to go to church. I do when I'm home, get face masks from like Target or Walmart, the dollar ones, and they might not be that great, but I like to put them on my face sometimes and just, you know, it makes you feel good. Another thing is I like to eat.
That's one of my favorite things. I like cooking, like for myself. Yeah. Like people are like, "You cook for yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like I love cooking for myself, like trying new recipes and stuff like that, and then like trying different restaurants as well.
Yeah, me too. I'm a foodie.
But you're already classically trained, so I'm sure you're a foodie.
Right. Yep. And when I came from Connecticut to Texas, I mean, shamefully, I'll say I gained like 40 pounds because I was just eating and cooking. So now I'm trying to work some of it off.
So does the rest of your family live with you in Texas or your sister and them?
No, so they're still in Connecticut, but I do have one sister that just moved to Texas. She's in Dallas, so we just visited her this weekend. Yeah, so she's close. I'm thankful for that. So, you know, as well as I know that it's hard to find people to watch your children that you trust and that will understand and follow your directions and things. So, since we've had Mason, me and my husband haven't been able to go away together and like alone since 2018. So I already told her this summer, please take your 2 weeks on the calendar and pick what time you want Mason, because he is coming. My older children, you know, they'll be okay. Well, I have to bring my 15-year-old there too. But
so wait, and your sister, does she have any children yet or not yet?
Yeah, she has a boy, a 15-year-old.
That's cool. That's good. So, what does we already talked about self-care. So how do you enforce boundaries? I know it's hard for us as moms to like kind of really enforce boundaries and say no when we, you know, it's in our nature to just like keep giving all the time. So like how do you make it your business to enforce your boundaries?
I think that when you prioritize yourself, it's one of the things that is just going to come naturally. And you have to identify whether you are a people pleaser or why you may feel uncomfortable saying no sometimes. But even you heard me say, I even say no to my kids because I can't keep on putting everybody else before me. So, you know, for me, relocation really helped my no. Because I'm so far away. So, but I would probably have to exercise the boundary a lot more if I was actually around so many of my friends and family. But like, no, I can't run around for you. No, you know, I can't have you borrow any dollars. I need my dollars. No, you know, and one thing that that happens a lot is we show up for others more than they even show up for us
all the time.
And so this morning I thought about even a friend that I have, and I remember my grandmother always saying the phone works both ways. And she said sometimes if you stop calling someone, you'll notice they don't call you. And so I apply that to relationships. I'm like, well, if I'm always the one calling, then we need a readjustment here.
Like matching, what is it? Matching energy.
That's right.
So what else? I feel like we're pretty much done with the show. Comadres, I want you guys to catch Camille's show. I know you just did a recent rebranding, right, of the show. So now what are you focusing more on this season?
Special needs parents. So I'm so excited. This week I'm going to be interviewing my friend Nikita. She's amazing. Nikita Nelson. Her daughter has autism and cerebral palsy. I got in touch with Kaylin from Netflix, Love on a Spectrum. So I'm going to interview
You're going to interview Kaylin? Oh my God. That is so awesome. I love her.
Yes. So I'm excited about that. And just special needs moms. I have someone who has a daughter with dwarfism. And so I'm trying to not just be autism, but give us all an opportunity to learn from each other.
That's amazing. I love it. So check out Camille at Moments of Joy podcast. And you can always follow me at Comadreando Pod. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to send me a Comadre-Gram via email at Marcy at Comadreandopod.com or slide up into my DMs. Also, comadres, don't forget to visit our website, which is www.comadreandopod.com as well. And thank you for spending time with your comadres. Thank you so much, Camille, for being on the show. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Hola, comadres. Marcy here. Just wanted to remind you that tomorrow, Thursday, October 27th, from 6 to 9 p.m., we will be celebrating the 1-year anniversary of your favorite show, Comadreando. Make sure to come on down and register on Eventbrite. Make sure to bring somebody with you. There's going to be cocktails. There's going to be delicious food. Make sure that you order yourself a comadre or a vecina or a bochinche. Hope to see you all there. Remember, the link for the Eventbrite is going to be in the bio. Take care. Bye.
Do you have a minute for Comadre time?